You do not even look at them anymore. That is the thing nobody talks about. The pill organizer has been on that counter for so long. The blue lid for morning, the white lid for night, that reaching for it has become as automatic as breathing. You pop it open. You tip the pills into your palm. You swallow them with whatever is nearby. And you move on with your day. You don't read the labels. You stopped doing that years ago. Your doctor prescribed them. Your pharmacist filled them. That is enough. But here is what is happening while you move on with your day. Inside your brain, a chemical messenger called acetylcholine, the one responsible for every memory you form, every name you recall, every thought you hold on to, is being quietly, systematically blocked. Not by disease, not by age, by the medications in that organizer. And the cruelest part, the more of them you take together, the faster it happens. And the longer it goes unrecognized, the more it begins to look, to you, to your family, even to your doctor, exactly like the early stages of dementia. If you have been forgetting words mid-sentence, losing the thread of a conversation you were just holding, walking into a room and standing there, searching for why you came, and blaming yourself or your age, stop. This may not be your age. This may be your pill organizer. And if you are watching this because someone you love is showing these signs, a parent who repeats themselves, a spouse whose sharpness has been fading for months, stay with me. Because what you are about to learn is the question that can change everything, if it gets asked in time. Whether you are watching this for yourself or for someone you care for, a parent, a spouse, a person whose memory you have been quietly worried about, I made this video for you. In the next 14 minutes, I am going to show you 5 common medication combinations, some requiring no prescription at all, that research now directly links to memory loss and accelerated cognitive decline in adults over 60. I will name the specific brands sitting in medicine cabinets right now. I will show you what they do inside the brain, and I will give you the exact question to bring to your next doctor's appointment. But before we get into the 5 combinations, I need to tell you something I am holding back for now. There is one thing that families do when they notice their aging parents beginning to forget things. They do it out of love. They do it with complete sincerity. And it makes the memory loss measurably worse. I will tell you exactly what it is. But first, you need to understand what is already happening inside the brain. Because without that foundation, the warning will not land the way it needs to. I have spent years in elderly health and healthy aging education, and the single most common pattern I see in seniors who are declining faster than they should is not a disease that was missed. It is a medication list that nobody reviewed. Not because the doctors do not care, because a standard appointment gives a physician minutes, not hours. There is no time to calculate the cumulative cognitive effect of every drug in a senior's organizer. That gap between what the system has time to check and what your brain is actually experiencing is exactly where this conversation lives. What I am about to show you is built around one clinical concept that most seniors have never heard and most families have never been told to look for. It is called anticholinergic burden. That phrase is going to make complete sense in about 90 seconds. And once it does, you will understand exactly why 5 specific medication combinations that look completely routine from the outside, are among the most documented causes of reversible cognitive decline in adults over 60. Let us start with what is happening inside your brain right now. Your brain runs on chemical messengers. Think of them as the electrical signals that keep your entire mental infrastructure lit up and running. The one most responsible for memory, for the moment a name surfaces, for the thread of a conversation staying intact, from knowing why you walked into a room, is called acetylcholine. Certain medications block it. Deliberately in some cases, because acetylcholine also controls muscle contractions in the bladder and gut, and blocking it can treat those problems. Incidentally, in other cases, because the drug was designed for something else entirely, and the cognitive effect is simply a side effect nobody mentioned. When one of these medications enters your system occasionally, the brain adapts. The effect is temporary. But here's what the research has now made undeniable. When 2 of these medications are taken together, the blocking compounds, when 3 are combined, it multiplies again. Each one adds its share to what researchers call the anticholinergic burden, the total cumulative weight of acetylcholine interference pressing down on the brain every single day. Adults aged 65 and older who carried this burden for 3 or more years had a 54% higher risk of developing dementia than those who did not. Not from one powerful drug in high doses, from the quiet daily stack of medications that looked, from the outside, completely routine. Now let me show you the 5 combinations of buildings that stack, starting with the one hiding in plain sight in almost every home. Medication 1. The nighttime trap. It does not look dangerous. That is the whole problem. Tylenol PM, Unisom, Sysquil. These are not exotic prescription medications. They are purchased at the checkout counter. They are given to grandchildren for allergies. They have been sitting in bathroom cabinets for decades, and nobody has ever suggested they might need a second thought. But the active ingredient in nearly all of them is diphenhydramine. And diphenhydramine is one of the highest-rated anticholinergic compounds available without a prescription. Here is how to picture what it does. Imagine your brain's memory centers as a busy telephone exchange. Dozens of operators, routing calls, connecting information from one part of your mind to another. All day, all night. Acetylcholine is the signal that keeps every operator at their station. Diphenhydramine walks in and starts unplugging cables. Not dramatically, not all at once, just quietly. A few per night, every night. One night, the system recovers by morning. 30 nights in a row. The operators begin forgetting which cables connect where. And by the time the family notices that something is wrong, the exchange has been quietly underfunded for months. I want to tell you about a woman I will call Agnes. 71 years old, sharp, active. The person in her family who remembered everyone's birthdays and organized every gathering. Over 8 months, her family watched her begin to repeat herself in conversations. Forget appointments she had never once missed. Lose the thread of stories she had told 100 times. Her doctor began evaluating for early dementia. What a full medication review found was this. Agnes had been taking a Benadryl-based sleep aid every single night for merely 2 years. And during allergy season, she added a daytime antihistamine. Same compound, twice daily, for months at a time. Her anticholinergic burden had been accumulating invisibly while her family watched and worried and prepared themselves for a diagnosis that was never the real problem. When her medications were reviewed and a safer alternative was prescribed, the fog lifted within weeks. The safer swap. Ask your doctor about second-generation antihistamines. Cetirizine, sold as Zyrtec, or fexofenadine, sold as Allegra. They work through a different mechanism with significantly lower anticholinergic activity. For sleep, melatonin carries no anticholinergic burden whatsoever. But the combination I am about to show you next is the one that surprises people most. Because it involves a medication prescribed for a problem nobody talks about openly. And the cognitive risk is even more direct. Medication 2, the bladder medication blind spot. Overactive bladder, the constant urgency, the interrupted sleep, the quiet anxiety about being too far from a bathroom in public. Tens of millions of seniors live with this. And because it is embarrassing, most people accept the prescription without much discussion. and take it every day without question. The most commonly prescribed medications for this condition in older adults are Oxybutynin, sold as Ditropan, Tolterodine, sold as Detrol, and Solifenacin, sold as Flexeril. These are among the highest-rated anticholinergic medications in clinical medicine. They work by blocking acetylcholine receptors in the bladder wall. That is their entire mechanism of action. Block acetylcholine, reduce the spasms, reduce the urgency. The problem is that acetylcholine receptors are not only in the bladder. They are throughout the entire nervous system, including in every memory structure the brain depends on. Think of it this way. You hire a security guard to stop one specific person from entering a building. But the guard cannot tell that person apart from 50 others who look similar. So he stops everyone, including the people your brain actually needs inside. When oxybutynin is combined with a nightly sleep aid, a daytime antihistamine, or an antidepressant, each carrying its own anticholinergic activity, the cumulative burden on the brain becomes clinically significant. The guard is now blocking the entire building. The question to bring to your doctor? Ask specifically whether a newer bladder medication called mirabegron might be appropriate. It works through a completely different mechanism, no acetylcholine blocking, and carries a significantly lower cognitive risk profile. That one question has changed medication regimens for seniors whose families thought they were out of options. And now we arrive at the third combination, the one most doctors know about, the one the research has documented most thoroughly, and the one that is still being prescribed in combination every day across the country. Medication 3, the anxiety plus sleep double hit. Benzodiazepines and sleep medications. Benzodiazepines, alprazolam sold as Xanax, diazepam sold as Valium, lorazepam sold as Ativan, prescribed for anxiety, panic, and sometimes sleep. Sleep medications, zolpidem sold as Ambien, ezoplom sold as Lunesta, prescribed to help seniors fall and stay asleep. Individually, each carries significant risks for anyone over 60. Together, they do something that gets to the very heart of why memory loss in seniors is so often misdiagnosed. Here's the analogy I want you to hold on to. Your brain's memory system is like a recording studio. For a memory to form, for an experience to move from short-term to permanent storage, the recording equipment has to be running while the event is happening. It has to be on, and it has to be captured. Benzodiazepines turn the recording equipment down. Sleep medications turn it down further. Taken together, they effectively stop the recording entirely during the hours when the brain should be consolidating everything that happened that day. You wake up. Yesterday feels blurry. The conversation you had feels incomplete. You remember being present, but the details have gone. Because they were never stored. You are not losing memories. You are failing to make them. And from the outside, from across a family dinner table, the result looks identical to the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. This is drug-induced memory impairment. It is not the same as neurodegeneration. It can be addressed, but only if someone connects the dots between the medications and the symptoms, before months or years of unnecessary decline pass without that conversation happening. If your loved one is currently taking both a benzodiazepine and a sleep medication, that combination requires a direct and specific conversation with their physician. Not eventually. I told you at the beginning that I was holding something back. We are almost there. But the fourth combination is the one most commonly missed in medication reviews, because the drug involved is rarely prescribed for mental health. It is prescribed for pain, and almost nobody thinks to mention it. Medication 4, the antidepressant hidden in the pain drawer. Many seniors are not prescribed older antidepressants for depression. They are prescribed for nerve pain, for back pain that has not responded to anything else, for the chronic ache that settles into joints and spine after decades of use. Amitriptyline, sold as Elavil. Doxepin, sold as Sinequan. These medications have been around for 50 years, and they genuinely help with pain. That part is real. What is rarely explained is that tricyclic antidepressants, this class of older medications, sit at the very top of the anticholinergic scale. They were developed decades before researchers fully understood what sustained acetylcholine blockade does to the aging brain over months and years. Here is how to picture it. Imagine your brain's memory system as a river. Acetylcholine is the current. Information flows downstream from experience to short-term memory to long-term storage, carried by that current. A tricyclic antidepressant does not stop the river. It builds a partial dam. The current slows. Information still moves, but slower, less reliably, with more getting lost along the way. Add a second medication that also builds a partial dam, then a third. And suddenly the river that was carrying a full flow of daily memory is barely moving. I want to tell you about a man I will call William. 74 years old, retired engineer. He had been taking amitriptyline at low dose for 2 years for chronic neck pain. What neither he nor his family connected was that over those same 2 years, he had also begun taking a sleep aid nightly and had been on a bladder medication for 18 months. 3 partial dams, built slowly, one at a time, by 3 different prescribers who never saw the full picture. His family brought him in for a dementia evaluation. The geriatrician who reviewed his full medication list recognized the anticholinergic burden immediately. A supervised deprescribing plan was put in place over 12 weeks. William's family described the change as watching him come back into focus. The question to ask your physician: is there a pain management alternative, a topical anti-inflammatory, a different drug class, a referral to physical therapy that does not carry anticholinergic activity? Newer antidepressants, if depression is also a factor, carry significantly lower burden. The conversation is worth having before years pass without it. Medication 5, the muscle relaxant multiplier. The 5th combination is the one that surprises people most, because the medication involved is taken for something that seems to have nothing to do with the brain. Muscle relaxants. Cyclobenzaprine, sold as Flexeril, is one of the most widely prescribed medications for back pain, neck stiffness, and joint discomfort in older adults. It works. For the muscle spasm, it genuinely helps. But cyclobenzaprine carries significant anticholinergic activity, and here is what makes it the most dangerous of the 5 combinations. Almost nobody thinks to mention it. When a senior already carrying an anticholinergic burden, from a sleep aid, a bladder medication, an antihistamine, an older antidepressant, adds cyclobenzaprine for a flare of back pain, the cumulative score crosses the clinical threshold where measurable cognitive acceleration begins. None of these medications is catastrophic in isolation. The quiet daily accumulation of 5 medications, each contributing their own share of burden, none of which looked at alone would raise an alarm, but together create a weight the aging brain can no longer absorb and recover from the way it once did. For muscle and joint pain, topical anti-inflammatories, non-anticholinergic pain medications, and physical therapy offer alternatives with none of the cognitive risk. That conversation with your physician should happen before the next prescription is filled, not after. Now, I promised you something at the start of this video. The one thing families do with complete love, with the best intentions, with genuine urgency that makes the memory loss measurably worse. Here is the scene. It is a Sunday afternoon. An adult daughter has just spent 3 hours reading articles about memory loss and brain health. She has a notepad full of supplements: ginkgo biloba, lion's mane mushroom, high-dose B12, a magnesium blend marketed for sleep and cognition, and a herbal nighttime formula she found in a Facebook group for caregivers. She drives to the pharmacy. She buys all of them, She goes to her mother's house, lines them up next to the pill organizer, writes out a schedule, and feels for the first time in weeks that she is doing something. What she doesn't know, what the articles didn't mention, is that the herbal nighttime formula contains valerian root blended with diphenhydramine, the same compound as Benadryl, listed on the label in small print under a name she doesn't recognize. Her mother is now taking diphenhydramine twice daily, once from a sleep aid she has been using for 2 years, and once from the supplement her daughter just added to help her. The burden doubles, and the daughter, watching her mother's memory continue to deteriorate despite everything she is doing, begins to believe the situation is hopeless. It is not hopeless. It was never hopeless. It was a medication list that needed a full review. Every prescription, every over-the-counter product, and every supplement on the counter, laid out in front of a pharmacist or physician who could see the whole picture at once. That review, that single hour, has restored clarity to people whose families had already started preparing themselves for the worst. I need to be direct with you about something before we finish. None of what I have shared today means you should remove a single medication from that organizer without speaking to your doctor first. Stopping a benzodiazepine suddenly is medically dangerous. Stopping a tricyclic antidepressant abruptly can cause serious withdrawal. These are not changes you make overnight on your own. What you can do, what you should do, is go into your next appointment carrying information instead of just symptoms. 3 situations that cannot wait for the next routine appointment. If your loved one showed a significant, noticeable change in memory or clarity within weeks of starting a new medication, that is not coincidence and it is not aging. That is a medical event. It warrants a phone call this week, not a wait until the next scheduled visit. If you count the medications in the organizer and 2 or more fall into the categories we discussed today, sleep aids, bladder medications, antihistamines, benzodiazepines, tricyclic antidepressants, muscle relaxants, walk into a pharmacy and ask for an anticholinergic burden review. Use those exact words. It is a standard service, it costs nothing, and a pharmacist can calculate the cumulative cognitive risk of every item on that list in a single conversation. If your aging parent is currently being evaluated for dementia, insist, before any diagnosis is confirmed, that a complete medication review be part of that evaluation. Drug-induced cognitive impairment is one of the most reversible conditions in geriatric medicine, but it is only reversible if someone looks for it before the label is applied. Picture this. 1 week from now, you are sitting in a pharmacy consultation room or across from your doctor with a single sheet of paper in your hand. On that paper is every medication, every supplement, every over-the-counter product that goes into the body of someone you care about. You hand it across the desk and you say 4 words. Can you check this? That is the moment. That piece of paper, those 4 words. Because the seniors who maintain their clarity longest are not always the ones with the best genetics or the most aggressive treatment plans. They are the ones whose families showed up with that piece of paper before the situation became a crisis. The ones who asked the question while asking it could still change the answer. Growing older does not have to mean growing quieter, growing slower, growing less. It means learning finally to read the signals the body has been sending and having someone in your corner who knows how to respond. Action protocol. 3 steps this week. Step 1. Write the full list. Every prescription, every over-the-counter product, every supplement. Do this today while the urgency is still fresh. Step 2. Take that list to a pharmacist and say, I am concerned about anticholinergic burden. Can you review this? That phrase opens the right conversation. A pharmacist can run a full cognitive risk assessment on the entire list at no cost. Step 3. Bring 1 specific question to the next doctor's appointment. For any medication in the 5 categories we covered today, ask, Is there a safer alternative with lower anticholinergic activity that would work for this situation? Write it down. Ask it out loud. One list, one conversation, one question. Before you go, tell me something in the comments. Are you watching this for yourself or for someone you love? I read every comment, and your answer tells me exactly what to cover next. Because the video I am preparing now addresses a single blood test that every senior over 65 should have in their annual panel, and that most doctors never order. If this gave you something you needed, please share it. The family who watches this tomorrow may still be in time to ask the right question before they need to. I am Dr. Elizabeth Aliu. Take care of your health and take care of each other.